To get an idea of how good a deal platinum is right now at about $950 an ounce, it helps to compare against other lows. So a lot of people tell me they wish they could have bought precious metals at whatever point, right? So for example, in 1999, gold was $250 an ounce. And to compare it against other metrics that have risen since the year 2000, right? So right now our M2 money supply is about 4 times what it was in 2000. So buying platinum at $900 today is like being able to go back to the year 2000 and buy platinum for $220 or so an ounce, right? So if you wish you could have bought gold at $250 an ounce in 2000, you should wish you could buy platinum today, right? Go buy it, right? And but that's just M2 money supply. If we look at all currency and credit derivatives, right? So for example, right now a lot of the market is bought on credit, right? Not so much for the platinum, obviously, right? Gold and silver are bought on leverage. Platinum, not so much, right? So we have about 6 or 7 times more currency and credit derivatives. I don't think I need to talk about the national debt. In 2000, we were projected to pay off the national debt in 10 years, right? I distinctly remember the 2000 presidential election debate was all about who could waste more of the budget surplus on free crap that nobody wants anyway, right? Of course, those days are gone. I think the debt was 5 trillion. Well, we can do the way back machine here. Go back to 2000, and it was 5.6 trillion. It was going down, and we had a budget surplus. I believe this is on this day in 2000. We had a budget surplus of 250 billion. It was increasing by the minute, and Bush and this is around the time of the year that Al Gore was demanding a recount because he wanted to waste all this budget surplus on whatever free crap he could dream up, right? Go watch the debates from back then. Now, what else did we have at the time? At the time, interest was a big part of our federal spending, right? Because that's not total interest. I want to know what the expenditure interest on the debt was. 221 billion. At the time, interest rates were rather high, right? The US also had a lot of outstanding 30-year bonds. So in 2000, a 30-year bond would have came from the 1970s when the interest rates were much higher, right? Nowadays, bonds are a lot shorter term. So let's go back to today to see how much we're spending on interest on the debt. So even though our debt has gone up by 6 times, our interest has not even doubled because thankfully interest rates are kind of low, right? But even if you index platinum to just the increase in the interest on spending, buying platinum for $900 today, kind of like buying it for $400 in the year 2000, that's still a very good deal, right? So that's what I like to look at it. What would happen if I could go back in time and buy platinum? What would that price be today compared to other things? Now I was kind of skimming through this, and a lot of these figures fly in the face of actual experience, right? We have 7 million unemployed. Now, if you quit your job because of really disgusting working conditions, or the fact that your job doesn't even allow you to pay for the gas to drive there, I mean, I would consider you were unemployed, right? Obviously, these figures disagree, right? To give you an idea, I do a lot of private tutoring, and earlier this year, not so much anymore because of the new variant in South Africa, but earlier this year, a lot of the families wanted me to go back to work in person, and I'm thinking to myself, what was a 1-hour session now becomes a 2.5-hour session, and plus I have to spend like a good fraction of the money they're paying me on the transportation there, and it just feels like a very sharp pay cut, right? I'd rather take a pay cut and continue working remotely. Plus, not to mention, when I'm working remotely, there's always the possibility that I can move out to the mountains again, where the cost of living is half as much. And you get the idea that the pay cut of having to, especially when it's only one or two clients who want to work in person, right? If a majority of clients wanted to work in person, okay, then I'm not really taking that big of a hit anymore because the Rocky Mountains is out of the picture now. I might already be on the road anyway, and you get the idea, right? Not to mention the risk of catching COVID-19, right? For me, it's probably not so high. I keep a good immune system, but the risk that I might take the blame if one of my other clients catches COVID-19, right? Who knows what that entails, right? And so it makes you wonder, right? If your boss cuts your pay so much that you leave, you've pretty much been fired, right? Except they might not even have to pay the unemployment, right? I don't know how that works. Now, what I really find funny is every time they talk about people who are have food insecurity or are hungry, give me a break. The last time I checked, a lot of people have way too much to eat, right? They live in a so-called food desert, but a lot of times, obviously this is controversial, but I think food deserts exist because there's demand for it, right? You got people who have unhealthy habits. Who wants to open a Whole Foods next to a place where people drink soda nonstop, right? You're just gonna go out of business, right? And then they're gonna call that place a food desert simply because nobody wanted to shop at the Whole Foods that you tried to open, right? Now, this one really drives me nuts. We got 9 million disabled people. Don't get me wrong. There are truly people who are disabled. Now, the problem is that we love to label every little difference as a disability, right? So, for example, I have allergies to fragrances, and I have to go get I worked at a tech giant one time, and the HR person told me to go to my doctor to get this form filled out to get this accommodation and I did, and to the credit of whoever was putting on the fragrances, they stopped. Now I'm thinking to myself, which one is the disability? The fact that I react badly to fragrances and I have ADHD and need to watch my chemical intake, or the fact that this guy insists on putting fragrances to, especially when you consider why people wear fragrances, right? They're wearing it for the benefit of other people, right? But if it's making other people sick, you've defeated that purpose already, right? Okay, so we like to call things disabilities when they're not, right? People should be entitled to clean air in their offices. I sometimes need to avoid certain foods, and so sometimes I literally have to tell my coworkers that maybe we should not make this a food event. And people like to call that a disability, right? When it's in reality just we beat on different wavelengths, right? So for example, right now here in 2021 we have very high gasoline prices, and thank God I don't drive a diesel vehicle, right? Because diesel is even more expensive. Would you consider vehicles that use a different kind of fuel disabled? No, they're different, right? You got vehicles that use gasoline, some use hydrogen, some use solar power, some might even use a plutonium battery. We don't call those things disabled, right? But for some reason, when it's a human being that takes in different nutrients or has different ways of life, or maybe even a religious preference, oh my God, those people are disabled, right? Because it's a good political sell, right? We're doing something about them, and it takes away their control, right? They're no longer in control of their faculties. Oh my God, government has to step in, right? Now, the interesting thing is that 5 years from now, take a look at that number, 9.3 million, and we're going to fast forward to 2025, and it's kind of unfortunate because the government apparently is going to murder a bunch of those people by taking away their control to live their lives, right? A lot of them are elderly to begin with, but I wouldn't be surprised that the labeling of people murders them, right? People who can't go to their office because they're labeled as disabled. You get the idea, right? None of that is fun. Now what gets really interesting is that by 2025, we will be printing $5,000 for every ounce of silver that we mine out of the ground. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people are waiting for silver to correct a little bit before buying, or waiting for gold. Now, keep in mind, yes, gold and silver might be overvalued at any given point in time, given the trends, right? But the longer you wait, the higher those trends go, right? You could be right that they're overvalued, but they're not going to correct just because all the trends are going up, right? So, for example, if you take gold to the national debt, or silver to the ratio of the national debt, sure, it might be overvalued, but keep in mind, as you're waiting, the national debt is not going down, right? This isn't 2000 anymore, where you could say, oh my god, I wish the national debt would go down a little bit, maybe I get a better buying opportunity. Anyways, platinum at 950, that's a steal. That's like traveling back to the 90s.